All right, gang. So in this module, we're going to take a look at a very important piece, even though it's a small piece of production, called material delivery. So what is meant by this? This is the actual physical delivery of the material to the customer's house. How are we going to get all this stuff to the customer's house? So just to put us in context where we're at, so far we've looked at the point of sale, we've looked at preparation, we've looked at organization, and we've looked at communication. So in this module, we're going to look at the material delivery piece, and then we'll get into installation, installer management, and what does it look like to sort of finish things out. So here we are. We've been perfectly organized. We got everything ready. We've got a communication set in place, and now we're getting ready to physically do the job. How are we going to get materials from the warehouse to the customer's house? So how do we make sure that we've got the job site ready and everything else? So first of all, we want to forecast an appropriate delivery time based on needed acclimation time. So this is why this is important, because we're going to talk a little bit about how long materials need to acclimate in somebody's home. Arranging delivery with installers and customers, and how do we make sure that the job site is inspected, that the bill of materials is right. So how can we utilize, or how can we leverage this material delivery to build in an additional process to ensure our success? So let's take a look at acclimation times to begin with. So what does it mean to acclimate? Well, acclimation, I'm sure you've heard it said that for a solid hardwood floor, it has to acclimate 7 days in a customer's home. That's not technically correct. Acclimation is dependent on temperature and humidity, not a specific time period. So depending on the product, depending on the situation, acclimation could be very, very fast. It could take a lot longer. Normally, a solid hardwood is anywhere from 3 to 10 days, but it could be shorter, it could be longer. So what are you acclimating? Well, you're going to test the subfloor, or you're going to have your installer test the subfloor, and you're going to test the wood flooring for moisture content using a moisture meter. Now, at pre-launch, you were given a not a pin type, but a pinless moisture meter. That moisture meter is a fairly expensive piece of technology. It allows you to measure the subfloor. It allows you to measure the wood itself, or the flooring itself. And what you're doing is you're measuring the relative humidity of both substrates and comparing those two. So for example, in this spec, and by the way, different specs are different, but in this spec, there should be no more than a 4% difference between the wood and the subfloor. So what does that mean? For plank flooring 3 inches or wider, so that would be a strip floor, for plank flooring 3 inches or wider, there should be no more than a 2% difference between the wood and the subfloor. So what would that look like? So I go into the customer's home, and maybe I have to pull some carpet back to be able to get to the subfloor, and I use my moisture meter to test the moisture in the subfloor. And it comes back with a number, whatever the number is. Let's say it comes back with a 20. Then I test the hardwood. So we've brought the hardwood into the home, and I test the hardwood. And the hardwood, it just so happened to be sitting in an outdoor lumber yard. It was under a cover, so it didn't get rained on, but it absorbed all the humidity in the air. And when I tested it, at 30. Well, I got a subfloor at 20. I've got this at 30. That's 10 points off. I cannot install the floor until those two numbers are within 2 points of one another for a wide plank, or 4 points for a strip floor. Now, again, this is going to be different depending on the product and depending on the manufacturer. So you have to go to the manufacturer's website. You have to pull up the specific floor to make sure that you're acclimating it properly. But I can't necessarily tell the customer this is going to be exactly 3 days, exactly 10 days, it's going to be 14 days. I don't know. For most of the time, as a general rule, most of the time, solid hardwood could be anywhere from 3 to 10 days. So it might be that I get the hardwood in the customer's home, and I'm scheduling the install for 10 days out. And one day, maybe day 7, day 8, I'm making a quick trip to the customer's house just to check and make sure that everything's okay. And if it's not okay, we're going to add some additional time. The absolute worst that I've seen bamboo. If you ever do a bamboo floor, typically bamboo comes from overseas, and it comes in cardboard boxes that are wrapped in plastic. You got to get the plastic off. You got to get the bamboo out of the box, because the boxes typically have a wax coating, so they can't breathe. And you've got to get that bamboo out of the boxes so that it can actually breathe the air and it can acclimate. I've seen bamboo take a month to acclimate before you can install it. So depending on the product, laminate, most of the time laminate might be same day, maybe 48 hours. LVP might be same day, maybe even 48 hours. Engineered hardwood might even be same day. AHF has some engineered hardwood where they say you don't have to acclimate it at all, which if the product was in an air-conditioned warehouse and the house is air-conditioned, then maybe you don't have to acclimate it. But if the product was sitting in an unair-conditioned space, so the temperature is high, the humidity is high, you know what? You still want to take a check to make sure that you're within reason. Again, acclimation is not necessarily, well, it's not time dependent. It is dependent on the temperature and the humidity of the product. And there is no one size fits all. You've got to go into your manufacturer's website. You've got to look at the product and see exactly what's called for when it comes to acclimation. I would record the subfloor. I would record the product so that if there ever was a warranty issue, you have those numbers and you can prove that you actually took the acclimation test. So what does all this mean? This means that you should deliver materials in advance. Okay, so if I'm going to deliver materials in advance, that actually gives me a great opportunity. The best practice here is that I'm going to get my installer to deliver the materials in advance. And if I get my installer to deliver materials in advance, I can go ahead and give the installer a copy of the work order. We can go ahead and look at the production video. The installer can look at everything that's been ordered, all the trim pieces, all the transition pieces, everything. So when the installer delivers the material, they can inspect the job site and they can confirm that the work order is correct. So see, this gives you, it's a belt and suspenders approach, I know, but this gives you an opportunity for the installer to walk the space. Maybe it's a day or two, maybe it's a week before the job is going to be installed. That way, if there's something that you missed, if there's something that your design associate missed, the installer can catch it before the day of the install. Now, I know because I did it myself. There's plenty of times when you show up at the warehouse at 6:30 in the morning to load the job for the installer and they're doing the job that day. I get it. And for most of the time, laminate, LVP, certainly for carpet, for a lot of even some of your engineered hardwoods, for a lot of your products, you're going to be able to get away with it. It's fine. Okay. Don't sweat it. Everybody's going to be happy. It's going to be okay. However, if you can get the materials delivered in advance and you can use that as a way for your installer to do a pre-day of install, a pre-job site inspection, it's going to give you the ability, it's going to give the installer the ability to find things that you might have missed on the work order, and it will allow you to solve problems before the day of the install. And that's the key. It's not that you're never going to miss anything. You will miss something. It's not that your DAs are never going to miss anything. They will miss something. It's whether or not you can find that and fix it before the day of the install so that on the day of the install, everything goes smooth. So thank you for your attention with this. I know material delivery doesn't sound like a sexy part of the job. It isn't. But if you think about it and you use this as a way of hedging your bets and get your installers to do that material delivery, even if there is a delivery, even if there is a material delivery fee, it may be very well worth spending that money to do that delivery fee if it gives you the opportunity for your installer to walk the job site with the work order in hand and catch things that you might not have caught in your initial consultation or that your design associate might have missed. It's a great way to hedge your bets. Thank you for your attention.